Hello and welcome to In the Newsroom. I'm Hwang Ji-hye. Well, we have less than 100 days to go until the 2012 London Olympics. And I think I know the very person who'll be as excited as I am. His name is Jason Lee. He's one of the panelists for Korea Today. And he's been tracking the sports news for almost 20 years. So let's go and see what he's up to and say hello. Jason, how is it going?
Hi.
How was your show?
Great as always. If I'm doing sports, then I'm loving it.
But this week's highlight was obviously the Olympic football draw. How did the Korean team do?
Well, Korea was drawn into Group B, which was seeded with Mexico along with Switzerland and Gabon. Mexico is seen as the weakest of the seeded teams, Brazil, England, and Spain being the other three that were definitely much more difficult to play against. So that could be seen as very lucky for Korea. Now, on the other hand, Switzerland was the second strongest country out of Europe, and Gabon was the African champions out of Africa. So the two secondary teams that were put with Korea and Mexico were definitely not as favorable, unfortunately.
Well, some people are quite happy with the result. They say that it was a lucky draw for Korean team. What's your take on this?
Well, I think people are seeing it as lucky because they got Mexico, and there's clearly an opportunity for a good result for Korea in that match. The way I see it is I think getting Switzerland and Gabon, unfortunately, was very unlucky because it's the top two teams that move up rather than the winner. So, I think they can get a good result against Mexico, but like I said, I think they've got two very difficult teams to face when it comes to Switzerland and Gabon. It would have been nicer to see them get maybe like a New Zealand or a United Arab Emirates or maybe a Morocco instead of those countries instead.
How far do you think the Korean team will go?
Well, I think having said that, Korea is as strong as anybody in their group. I think if you were to look at Group B and predict who would be the top two teams out of that group, it really can be anybody. I think Koreans have as good a chance as anyone. I would say that they will come out of that group with probably either Mexico or Switzerland. And then depending on if they're the one seed or the two seed out of that, they would go against either the one seed or the two seed in Group A, which features both England as well as Uruguay. So I think there's an opportunity for a good result. Who knows? Maybe they can go to the semifinals or maybe even further.
That sounds promising. Well, Jason, thank you so much for talking to us.
Anytime at all.
All right, so before we go and meet our very own reporters in the newsroom, let's go over to Hwang Ji-hye for the recap of some of the headlines this week.
Hello, Ji-hye. Another busy week has just flown by, and here are some of the stories that kept us busy throughout this week. The United States confirms the country's first case of mad cow disease in 6 years. The Korean government, however, says it will not suspend imports of U.S. beef for now. In domestic politics, registration for December's presidential election begins here in Korea, opening the door to the official start of campaign activities. Staying on the topic, the outgoing National Assembly's last plenary session is cancelled, leaving a little over a month to vote on critical bills. Korea and Venezuela signed a series of energy MOUs amounting to some $11 billion, including building an oil pipeline along the coast of the Latin American country. Updates on North Korea. International media speculates that North Korea may conduct its third nuclear test in the next week or two. Korea's finance ministry unveils the government's spending plan for next year, which will focus on efforts to balance the budget, expand welfare, and secure sustainable growth. Korean companies have been fined around $2 billion for engaging in international cartel activity since 1996. Korea's Fair Trade Commission warns more countries are focusing their attention on price-rigging activities by businesses. Former chairman of the Korea Communications Commission, Choi Yu-seon, undergoes 14 hours of intensive questioning over an alleged bribery scandal. Well, this wraps up my part for this week. I'll be getting back to work now, so take it away, Ji-hye.
Hello guys, it has been another eventful week here in the newsroom. Let's begin with the development in North Korea. Since its failed rocket launch earlier this month, it has been keeping the world guessing as to what they're going to do next to save face. You've been keeping track of this story. What have you been picking up?
Well, earlier this week on Monday, North Korea actually threatened to take what it called special actions to turn parts of Seoul into ashes.
The North said its targets would include quote-unquote traitors within the Ji Myeong-gil government, as well as South Korea's conservative media outlets. It added that the North's military could reduce all of them to ashes within 3 or 4 minutes by using an unprecedented means of its own style. As for its reasons for dishing out the harsh rhetoric, North Korea raised the South Korean government's recently announced cruise missile that can attack all regions in the north, and President Ji Myeong-gil's calls for the North to reform its use of agricultural land.
What was interesting is that it not only talked about the South Korean government, but also said it would target some of the major conservative media outlets here in South Korea.
Are we one of them?
Oh gosh, I mean, I actually thought about that, us being a state-funded broadcaster, but let's just hope that we're not included in that group.
It seems that the South Korean government is keeping a low key when it comes to responding to North Korea's rhetoric or any threats of some sort. What kind of stance are they taking? Is it a wait-and-see approach?
Well, for one, the Defense Ministry here is saying that they actually haven't spotted any special signs of there being preparations for a nuclear test. And so, many of the experts are saying that the North is not likely going to carry out a direct attack on Seoul. It may carry out some sort of a cyber attack or maybe another missile launch. And so the South Korean government is not willing to sort of respond in a way that the North wants us to respond, thereby creating tensions here within the South and also, directing attention towards the Korean peninsula.
I mean, you must have had a chance to talk to other reporters from the ministry. How are they reacting to this? What are they making out of this?
Well, it was interesting that one of the reporters from more of a progressive liberal media organization, which I'm not going to name, was actually saying, well, the Ji Myeong-gil government has been actually saying, North Korea has been lavishly spending on the rocket launch and celebrations for the founder's birthday a while ago, while its people are suffering in hunger and poverty. And also the South Korean government has been very critical about the failed rocket launch, and this particular reporter was saying, well, we wouldn't be this judgmental and critical about any other country or government. And so in a way, the South is sort of provoking the North to respond in the way that they are right now, which, I mean, that's just his personal opinion. I think what's also interesting is that the U.S., South Korea, their allies are not only condemning the North for its rocket launch, but also, directing focus on the fact that the Kim Jong-un leadership is neglecting the well-being of its people at the cost of, provoking and developing their weapon systems. And so it's not just about denouncing the North, but it's also about, the international community being concerned about the well-being of the North Korean people.
Right. After the rocket launch, we saw the UNSC, the United UN Security Council resolution, as well as additional sanctions on North Korea. But it seems that Pyongyang is unfazed by this move from the international community. They're just going ahead with their, possible provocation. Exactly, and upping the rhetoric on South Korea like that. It's just amazing. Well, now moving on to a story that caused a public health scare, mad cow disease. I mean, to even hear these 3 words again after all these years, I was surprised. You covered the story as it broke out. What was your first reaction?
Yeah, I was also scared. I mean, as you said, after all those protests, when we try to do the FTA with the United States, the Koreans were also scared of the fact, and then like the current administration was persuading people that it's going to be okay, but then like there's a major like outbreak.
The U.S. Agriculture Department confirmed Tuesday the country's first case of mad cow disease, or BSE, in 6 years, but swiftly reassured consumers that no parts of the animal, a dairy cow, entered the nation's food supply. This is the 4th case of mad cow disease in the U.S. since 2003. According to the World Health Organization, tests show that humans cannot be infected by drinking milk from animals who have been infected with the disease.
So what hit me was the food supply. I mean, how is this going to affect not only their food supply, but also here? Like you said, imports. We have U.S. beef here in the nation. Right. So
the Agriculture Department of the U.S. is saying that it's not the cow that is affected by the disease won't affect the food chain in the U.S. as well as other countries. I mean, basically, but like. I think people are really scared about the fact that it broke out, and they keep on assuring people, like saying that this is not going to affect the food chain and that also the milk will not be affected. And Korean government is saying that because we don't know where it comes from, and we have to see where this comes from and all the facts, and then we'll make sure if it still remains as a threat, they will ban the imports.
But our government is still boosting the quarantine efforts,
right.
And investigating still. Okay, that's assuring to know. Right. Okay. Now going on to some pleasant news. Our reporters, can you share that with us?
Yes, it's a good news. The UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, he's set to receive the Distinguished Leadership Award in May, which is next month. And so do you guys know what Atlantic Council is? This is the organization who is going to give that award. So have you heard of the name Atlantic Council? Tell us about it.
Well, it's a major think tank that's located in the U.S. in Washington.
And what's interesting is that this organization gives awards to 5 areas, people in 5 areas, and this year Prince Harry is going to receive the Distinguished Humanitarian Leadership Award. So it's interesting.
Go Prince Harry.
Yeah, Prince Harry.
And Mr. Ban, well, what's he getting this reward for?
He's getting the award for leadership. His leadership in gaining support from world leaders and making them to cooperate in issues such as like climate change and economy. So he's getting the award for his leadership this year.
And he is currently, working on the conflict in Sudan, the Syrian crisis, the North Korean rocket launch, and unrest in Bahrain. So, I mean, certainly we wish him good luck in his future endeavors. And once again, thank you so much, guys, for your contribution and insight. We'll see you guys back here next week.
Okay.
All right.
I am preparing to go to the press conference by the Sri Lankan government. This comes ahead of the visit by the president of Sri Lanka. I'm studying the history behind Sri Lanka and Korea and their relationship over the past few decades. Just trying to do some background research before I meet the foreign minister of foreign affairs, and the Sri Lankan president tomorrow. 네, 여기 기자회견. 네. I'm here for a press conference held by the Minister of Foreign Affairs from Sri Lanka, and so I'm going to the press briefing right now, and I have a few questions for him and for the president, so we have to hurry. There are a lot of local media outlets here at this press conference, and I'm sure they're interested in the economic factors of Korea and how Sri Lanka affects Koreans' economy.
장관님이 중간에
네.
질의응답 시간 있으면 가르쳐 질문해가지고
네.
그걸 좀 뉴스에 쓰는 걸로 사죠.
네. 네.
The Republic of Korea is interested in a variety of infrastructure projects in Sri Lanka, especially with regard to the construction of highways.
President Rajapaksa is visiting a waste disposal facility in Korea, in Mapo. Is there a specific reason why he's going to that facility?
Because Sri Lanka strongly believes that economic development and the preservation of the environment must go hand in hand.
His country is very interested in how Korea has, that industry developed, and so I think I'm gonna have to go follow the president tomorrow to the waste facility disposal. 이 칸이 영문으로 되어 있을 거예요. So this is actually my first time meeting a president from another country, and so I'm quite excited. Already I feel like security is very tight. If you see here, my badge here. So we're gonna go follow the president and be part of the tour. I'm waiting for. When the president comes, I hope to get an answer to the question about labor workers here in Korea and how that helps the Sri Lankan economy. So for now, the president is set to tour this resource recovery plant. The president is doing a quick tour of the facility. Security is, of course, very, very tight. We can't follow him. 잠깐만요. 2층이네요. The president is right behind him. The president is wearing his traditional brown garb around his neck. You see here, I think we're going to be pushed away. It's like a herd of people. So note all the security people and the bodyguards and so the president has left. Right now I'm trying to wrap up my story, my package, trying to get the most interesting points out of his trip here. President Rajapaksa's visit to this plant stems from Sri Lanka's interest in expanding its industrial development while preserving its environment.
Okay, let's go some of those stories that's likely to be on our newscast for next week. Another report that really caught my attention was youth startup activities in the country. I mean, youth unemployment's been a huge social issue here in Korea, not only in Korea but around the world, and it'd be interesting to see how the government is really rolling up their sleeves and trying to work on this boost the figure and trying to help these entrepreneurship of these young people.
It's really interesting because, youth unemployment is such a big issue here in Korea. And I think there was a survey done for young people, who fresh out of college, who are looking for jobs. And, some years ago, their first top priority would be, getting employment at big companies like Samsung, LG, whatnot, all these big companies. But now the trend has been shifting towards them actually coming up with startups, starting their own startups. And so I think the government is making various efforts. The young people are responding to the support. And so, yeah.
We should also be careful though, because this is not going to be a solution for the youth unemployment in the country. So it might there is a chance that this could also cause another problems. This stemming from the encouraging the youth to actually start up their own businesses. So I think
How so?
because if you as much as good as it sounds to start up a business, it's not easy to run one and then maintain one and keep making profits. So there has got to be some companies that are not going to be as successful as the others.
So I guess our reporters will be providing us with latest figures, talk to some experts, and see if there's a success story that we can share with our viewers. Pretty interesting to see. How about KT?
On Wednesday, actually, we are going to have a Mr. Ahmed Hagagovic. He's an Egyptian traveler. He's an inspirational speaker, and he has traveled about 80 countries now so far. And he was part of the Egyptian Revolution uprising last year. And in Egypt, because they're going to have the presidential election in May, he's trying to promote, let the world know that this is going on in Egypt. Please pay attention.
Well, speaking of special guests, I think in our newscast we might have Lee Jasmine.
Yeah, we're keeping our fingers crossed.
Yeah, we'll work out. She's a Philippine-born naturalized Korean citizen to become the very first lawmaker, and she's been through a lot.
Yes,
in Korea.
Yeah.
With the whole racism remarks online, and it must have been a hard time for her, but she came out, and maybe we can talk to her about how she's been, what her thoughts are as being a Philippine-born naturalized Korean to be living in Korea.
I think what many of us don't realize is that she has been here for the past nearly 20 years, yes? Yeah, just throwing these xenophobic comments is really not the right way to go, and hopefully we'll have her in our studio to speak to her personally about these things.
We've got a lot of Philippine viewers watching Arirang TV.
Oh yes, we do.
It's going to be very interesting to see. Right. So, the month of April is almost over.
It's May already now.
Right.
And we could actually cover lots of stories on May 5th, Children's Day, so something
Can we go?
leading up to that. No, actually last year for Children's Day, I had Bororo in my studio.
Oh, you did?
I remember that. We had the big Bororo.
President?
Yes, the president for the children.
The children's president, and it was when I was doing Arirang Today, and we had Bororo, a big size Bororo, at our news table, and he was sitting where all of our experts usually sit in our interviews, and yeah, I was co-anchoring with Sean, and Sean and I were trying to explain, where Bororo's from, Porong village, and I bursted out into laughter, and it was like live, and I kept laughing, and I was crying towards the end, and
children must have loved that show.
That's the beauty of live shows.
I was crying towards the end.
Spend imports of beef.
왜 이러니 오늘? Our producer is telling us to wrap up. It's a dairy cow, right? So, it costs quite a high